Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to go into Chapter 6, the consciousness exercise. And Josh and Raman are both here and will be participating along the way. Chapter 6, consciousness exercise, has to do with having the experience that we are not simply the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations of the body. That we are this consciousness itself, and you'll have the direct experience of that as we go along. Realizing that you are the consciousness connects with the Chapter 1 concept of the editor. The editor is the one who gets called when the disturbing feeling arises. The editor is the one who reads the story behind the feeling and asks those three questions. Is this true? Are there other truths we need to keep in mind so we have an unbiased understanding of the whole of the situation? And then, does it contribute to my well-being and the well-being of those around me to think this thought or to take this action? The consciousness exercise facilitates putting yourself into the editor position, to step back from the thoughts so that you can assess the automatic thinking of the brain more objectively. There are two parts to this exercise. Part 1 will involve attending to sound happening. All sound happening comes into consciousness from the external environment. It does not originate in the mind. In part 2, we'll be attending to thinking happening. And all the thinking happening arises within the mind, within the body, the head, the skull. Okay? So we'll be making that distinction as we go along here today. Okay? We're going to begin with part 1, attending to sound happening, and I'd like to set that up with a little exercise. Now, you may have other sounds occurring in your environment, depending on whether or not you're wearing headphones. If you want to wear headphones, that's perfectly fine because you'll be picking up the sounds in this environment. If you don't have headphones or don't want to have headphones, that's perfectly fine because you'll just be attending to the sound happening in the environment you're in. What I suggest, however, in fact it's more than a suggestion, if you want to have the full experience, you would want to make sure that there are no other people around that are talking because the content of their speech could interfere with the exercise. Most of the exercise will be done with eyes closed. I will be closing my eyes here and joining you in the exercise as we go along. Okay? And I'd like to begin by setting up part 1, attending to sound happening. So I invite all of you to close your eyes as I am doing and pay attention to where your right foot is without looking at it and without moving it. Simply, through your mental awareness, pay attention to where the right foot is. And then notice the location of your left knee, the location of your right thumb. Notice the location of your chin, the tip of your nose, and notice the location of your ears. This last location is where we're going to begin paying attention because we want to attend to sound happening as it comes into the auditory system from the external environment. So with the mind focused on attending to sound, let's just take about a half a minute or so together to simply witness, aware, whether or not sound is taking place. You might notice the silence in the room. There may be sounds that are entering into the room. You might notice that it really does not take any effort at all for sound happening to occur. Sound happening is not a function of thought. Thought does not create the experience of sound happening. It's completely independent of thought. Notice this. Sounds may activate certain thoughts, but thought has absolutely no impact whatsoever on sound happening. Each experience, each moment of sound happening is taking place in present moment time. No effort is involved. Simply aware. Each moment of sound happening is occurring right now. All sound happening is taking place now. Each moment of sound happening has never occurred before in the entirety of the universe. 13.8 billion years. And will never repeat. Sounds happen and unhappen. Appear and disappear. The mind is simply aware that sound is taking place. Thoughts may occur. There may be thoughts assessing, comparing, labeling, and that's natural, not a problem. What we're paying attention to is not the thinking happening in the mind. All of that originates in the mind and remains in the mind. What we are attending to is sound. Sound that originates from the external environment. Sound that is existing completely independent of thought. There is no effort for the perception of sound. It simply happens. Time free, space free. Notice that there is consciousness of sound happening. One is aware that sound is taking place. And you may notice that this consciousness itself does not have any words that are necessary for the perception of sound. Sounds simply happen and unhappen. Notice the consciousness itself. The awareness that sound is taking place. You may also notice the small space between sounds. In which you may become aware of stillness perhaps even silence. Notice the state of the body as you attend to sound happening. Simply be aware. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to become. Simply aware. If thoughts are present, simply watch the thoughts as you might watch clouds passing through the sky. Not trying to hold on to any, not trying to remove any. Again, paying attention to the state of the body. Simply aware of sound. In a moment, you'll be invited to open your eyes, but before you do, be ready to experience sight. Be ready to experience color, shape, form, as a camera lens might see. Noticing everything that is in the visual field without focusing on any one shape, color, or form. Perhaps seeing as an infant sees for the very first time, without any words, without any comparison. Simply aware. Whenever you're ready, let the eyes open and see, and notice the stillness, or the stillness in the background, against which any movement might be taking place. Okay, so I'll just open it up for Josh or Raman to make any comments or share anything of their experience of part one.
That was a powerful experience, going between sound and silence. Yeah, I found that my body appreciated sound more when I tuned into the silence. And that there's this beautiful symbiotic relationship between the two.
Right.
Yeah.
So being aware of both the silence and the sound gives you that sense of something more happening there, the relationship between the two. Where the mind may be quieter perhaps in the attending.
Right, very zen.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, for me it was really deep to tune into that sound. It's quite a journey. I found myself on a journey.
Oh, it's like a journey, yes.
And it's just interesting as far as that initial moment of noticing the sound in consciousness and then noticing the sound diminish, and then also the moment right before that silence. It's just like a dance. It's really interesting. And I found my mind fairly quiet during that process.
Yes, the mind became quiet, and then there was the invitation to pay attention to the body, to the body sense as a whole. And, maybe you'd like to share your experience. I don't know if it was different from the usual or not for you.
Yeah, I feel like sound for me, it's a great bridge to feel more connected to the body. I think there's a real natural like dropping in that happens that for me felt a little more accessible than other practices that facilitate a like mind-body connection.
Right.
You know, sound seems like a good ally for that.
Yes, because sound is the experience of body. Right. Taking place in the auditory system and entering consciousness through that auditory system. Okay, so we'll move on to part 2. Part 2 involves paying attention to thinking happening. Now, when most of us think about thinking, we think about words and sentences. Okay? Most thinking does take place verbally, inside. However, images are also part of thinking taking place or thinking happening. So, for example, if I were to suggest that you visualize a yellow Volkswagen Beetle in front of a large red fire engine. Notice if you can visualize that. Some people may not, but most people can get a mental image. That's also thinking. Carl Jung has a book entitled Word and Image. Very interesting book. Also, thinking happens in terms of sound. So any sensory system can involve thinking. So right now I suggest that you think of what it sounds like to be at a fireworks display. If you need a little help with that, think of what it's like to be at the finale of a fireworks display. Right? So if you can hear the popping sounds or the whirring sounds, that's also thinking happening. Right? So thinking is representational. It's representational of a body experience. And sometimes things that seem beyond the body as well. So now we're going to go into part 2, attending to thinking happening. During this exercise, any words that you're listening to are going to be thinking happening, except for the sound of my voice. That's sound happening, because it's coming from the external environment into your consciousness. If you're aware of any words going on in the mind when I'm not talking, that is thinking happening. And we're simply going to pay attention to the thoughts that come and go, just as we paid attention to the sounds that come and go. I might ask a question again, and the question is to be answered to yourself internally for your own awareness. We can begin with the eyes closed. There will not be any words as sound happening except for the sound of my voice. All words will be thinking happening, originating in and staying in the mind, in the head. There may also be sound happening, which is fine. The focus of attention is on thinking or thoughts. It may sound like an internal voice. As with sound happening, you may notice that it doesn't require any mental effort. The brain thinks automatically. It can be interesting and even quite surprising to realize, as we discussed in chapter 1, that the brain is thinking automatically. Most of the thoughts that come and go in the mind are not chosen willfully. Simply watch the movement of thought. Thoughts come and go, just like sounds. Simply be aware of the beginning or emergence of a thought, and notice that the thought will come to an end on its own, without choosing. And just as with sound, each thought happening has never existed before in the entirety of the universe. 13.8 billion years. And will never repeat. And will never repeat. No matter how many times I say, and will never repeat, you will not be the first, the second, the third, etc. Just as we discussed in the chapter on time. Chronological time is a forward, linear movement. And will never repeat. Around the globe, people are already in a different position than they were the first time I uttered those words, or made that statement. We tend to create a fixed image of self and give continuity to the thoughts. They have a sense of being alive and existing. It's quite unnecessary to life. This body will continue to function, whether the thoughts are present or not. Notice that there is consciousness of thinking happening. Thoughts enter consciousness and leave. Thoughts come and go. Just as sounds come and go. And the same for feelings and body sensations. They all come and go. Notice the consciousness itself. Notice if it has any qualities of its own, any characteristics. Or is the consciousness like the sky? Open, without measure, spacious, allowing things to enter and leave without being affected. The consciousness may not have any content of its own. simply the space in which content exists. During this exercise, thoughts have come and gone, sounds have come and gone, sensations, feelings. During this exercise, have you come and gone? Or have you been continuously present, continuously aware of the movement of thought, or sound, or body experience? If thoughts, sensations, and feelings have come and gone, but you have been entirely present this entire time, and consciousness has not come and gone, it has been present this entire time, perhaps you are the consciousness itself, simply aware, unaffected, undisturbed. Simply being. Being simple. Sense the state of the body as you attend to consciousness. You're invited to let the body answer this next question. What is the state of the body when it is not being interfered with or intruded upon by thought? Drop down into the body and let the body give you the answer. What is the state of the body when it is not being interfered with or intruded upon by thought? Are you now ready to relax into the primal intelligence which both birthed and sustains this body? Shortly, you'll be invited to open your eyes, and as before, allow your eyes to see as a camera lens might see, color, form, shape. To see as an infant might see for the very first time, without words, ideas, or concepts. When the eyes open, notice the stillness. And if there is any movement, notice the still background against which all movement is taking place. Whenever you would like, let your eyes open and see. Okay, Josh, Raman, any thoughts, comments, anything you'd like to share? You don't have to, if you'd like to.
Yeah, that was lovely. I think it's refreshing to remember and feel the kind of like safety or goodness of the body, and just really like feel the difference between thinking and kind of being, and the power that thinking has.
Right. Yeah, how the thinking impacts the body, as it should, right? Again, the function of a disturbing feeling is to expand consciousness of self and situation. Right? So the body is always working to help the thinking mind be more aware and more present. And when it's freed from the interference or intrusion by thought, then the body gets a break.
Yeah.
Right.
It gets to just be itself.
Right.
An organism on the planet, in the supporting environment,
Right.
without much ado about nothing. No tempest.
That's right. Real medicine.
Raman, anything you'd like to share?
Same, I just felt incredibly whole. Because I felt like the thoughts kind of limit me. Whereas like stepping into thoughtlessness, there was an expansion. You know, expansion of my body, the wholeness. The wholeness is always there, but it's the thoughts that are taking away from just the inherent wholeness I have. So I found myself going between that.
Yes. So this exercise brought you back in touch with that wholeness and the expansiveness of the wholeness. Which is always there, as you said. It's kind of like the sun is always there, but the clouds get in the way. So that would be like the thoughts getting in the way of our perceiving that the sun is always there.
I am laughing because I was thinking about the sun. Because I'm like, oh, I feel like more like the sun. And then you just said it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I guess that.
Well, few questions here. If you were to draw a line across the body somewhere, like that, and call it a sagittal plane if this was a biology class, where would you draw the line for where hearing or sound happening is perceived?
I guess it's perceived that you're hearing like from your ears.
Okay, yeah, so it would be at this level here.
Right. That
So
one.
this would be the level of hearing.
Eye level, yeah.
Okay, and where would you put thinking when thinking is taking place? It would be up above that. Okay, so here, maybe up higher.
Yeah, here, higher.
And where would you put consciousness?
I would say rounds.
Okay.
All over
Yeah.
you.
Right, so it's not localized, right? We're
Right.
saying round and all over, yeah. So the consciousness is round and all over. So for those who watched chapter 5, there's that little diagram on the board where we begin with energy, which is ubiquitous everywhere, right? And then you have the atoms, which make us aware of the energy, the molecules, and this is the evolution of consciousness. So we have energy, and then we have particles forming atoms, which then form molecules, which then form cells, tissue, organs, and organisms. Then the organisms have a consciousness, and in the human organism, it's a consciousness that's aware of itself and its environment and makes speculations and concepts and all that, and studies itself through biology, organism, through chemistry, molecules, through physics, atoms, and back down to what we might call spirituality, which is the awareness of being an element of the totality, in which there is no separateness or division other than created by thought, which by its very nature divides and fragments. So that consciousness is energy.
Right.
Energy is ubiquitous. So an interesting little synchronicity here when I mentioned the sun and the clouds,
Yeah.
and you shared with me, I don't know if it came through on the audio here, that you were actually thinking of the sun as an example or symbol of what your
Absolutely.
experience was.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
that expansion, being connected to that energy, and I guess I am that energy
Yes,
from
yes.
chapter 5.
Yes, we are that energy.
Yeah.
Right? We are pure energy beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that our
Mhm.
sensory system doesn't pick it up. We have to go into the imaginal world in order to sense the fact that we're made up of trillions and trillions and trillions of atoms, which are largely empty space.
Mm-hmm.
But that empty space has within it energy,
Right.
which is the potential for activation, movement, or relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So that energy is ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
It's all around.
Mm.
Mm.
So bottom line, we are that energy, and there is no division or separation.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know how we got there, but that's typically not part of chapter 6. We kind of went off on a little tangent there. Okay. So, did I forget anything?
Mm.
Anything should be added? Would you like to add anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah, just thank you.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
thank us and thank it.
yeah, thank it. Yeah.
Thank it.
Thank
Okay, this is the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7 will be a round table discussion, unrehearsed, unprepared, unwritten. It's a part of the book that hasn't been written yet, so we're going to be just chatting here. And the topic is going to be relationship to the other being, not just other human beings, plants, animals, material, but the other is our own unconscious, our own psyche, the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious, and how to relate to those dynamic energies and those characters that appear to us
Mm.
in our imagination or in dreams,
Mm.
so that we can take these principles from the first 6 chapters, and then say, well, how does that relate to me relating to myself? That part of myself that I call the other, the
Mm.
unconscious.
Mm.
And we'll be unconscious entering that discussion, and we'll see where it goes.
Yes.
See you next time.
Thank you.